My name's Casey Doyle. I'm 31. And according to my father and stepmother, I stopped being their responsibility a long time ago. Last November, I almost died. Not from some freak accident or random illness, but from something I'd been battling since I was 15. Bulimia. I'd gotten good at hiding it. Years of gymnastics taught me how to smile while bleeding inside. By the time I was 18, I'd won a full-ride scholarship and left home like a bullet. I thought I was free. But eating disorders don't care where you go. They follow you. They feed on silence, on shame, on the way people look at you like you're broken even when you're trying your best. I relapsed hard last year. Running my own gym, training kids, smiling for their parents while passing out in the supply closet. I'd lost over 25 pounds in 2 months. Still thought I looked fine. The day everything collapsed, I was at the studio after hours. I'd pushed through a full lesson, hadn't eaten more than half a protein bar in 36 hours, and when I bent down to fix a balance beam strap, my legs gave out. Black. Gone. I woke up in a private clinic. I don't remember the first hours, but they told me I was severely dehydrated, electrolyte levels were tanked, and my heart was irregular. Dangerous irregular. I needed monitored care, IVs, psychiatric support. The kind of treatment insurance companies drag their feet on. They checked my phone for an emergency contact. My father was listed. So was Dana, my stepmother. The clinic called, left voicemails, then called again. According to the staff, when they finally picked up, my father's exact words were, "Casey's an adult. We haven't been involved in years. Her choices aren't our problem." Dana added, "She's not my daughter. And frankly, if she's relapsing again, it's because she refuses to take responsibility for her life." And just like that, they hung up. The nurse told me this days later, carefully, like she was afraid I'd break. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the ceiling and thought, so this is how it ends. Quietly, without anyone in the waiting room. I had no one else listed. My mom died when I was 9. All my extended family is scattered or non-existent. Friends? I hadn't told anyone how bad things had gotten. I was alone. Except for Mika. She's my business partner. We'd started the gym together. She found out I'd been hospitalized when I didn't show up for a staff meeting and hadn't answered texts in 3 days. She called every hospital in the city until she found me. And then she did something my own father wouldn't do. She showed up, signed the damn forms, paid the deposit for my treatment out of her own pocket. I'm not even sure how much. She won't tell me. But if she hadn't, I would have been transferred out. To a public hospital. Or discharged entirely. Because the clinic doesn't treat uninsured patients without a cosigner. The night nurse later told me, "We were 12 hours from moving you. Your vitals weren't stable. If she hadn't come..." And then, a week later, when I could finally sit up without puking, guess who did walk in? Not to see me. Not to check if I was okay, but to ask about something very specific my grandmother had left behind before she passed away. Something with my name on it. And when I heard what they were really after, I almost ripped the IV out of my arm. They came for the money. Not even a full week after I almost died. Not a phone call. Not a text. Not a single, "How are you holding up?" They showed up at the clinic like they were doing me a favor. Dana had a gift bag. One of those designer ones you reuse from someone else's birthday. It had nothing inside but a single lavender candle and a card with my name spelled wrong. Cassie. I'm not even kidding. Dad didn't say much. He never does when he knows he's being watched. He stood behind her, arms crossed, like he was waiting to get through TSA. Dana put the bag on the little rolling table next to my bed, looked around like the place smelled bad, and said, "We heard you were stable now. That's good. We didn't want to disturb your recovery." I hadn't even spoken yet. I just stared at her because I could feel it coming. The ask. You don't spend your whole childhood around emotionally manipulative people without learning to smell it coming like a storm. And sure enough, it came. "So," she said, flipping through a manila folder she pulled from her tote. "There's this thing with your grandmother's estate. You were technically named as a conditional beneficiary. The lawyer called us when you didn't answer his emails." I blinked. I hadn't checked email in 2 weeks. Didn't even know Grandma June had left a will. Dana continued. "Basically, the clause says if you're incapacitated for any reason, the trust transfers to the next of kin after 60 days, which legally is your father, unless you claim it before then. But you'll need to prove competency, financial solvency, the whole thing. Complicated paperwork, stressful." She smiled. That tight customer service smile. The one she used on waiters and hairdressers. "Honestly," she said, lowering her voice like she was doing me a favor, "we're happy to take care of it. Less hassle for you. Your health should come first." My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "You mean the inheritance?" I asked. My voice came out hoarse from the feeding tube they'd removed days earlier. "Technically, yes," she said brightly, like we were talking about weather. Dad still hadn't said a word. He was texting. I felt like I was floating outside my own body. Grandma June had been the only one who never treated me like a burden. When my mom died, she'd let me stay with her for 2 months that summer, while Dad got things sorted. Dana had just moved in back then, and apparently a grieving 9-year-old didn't vibe with her newly remodeled condo. I remember June brushing my hair every morning, making cinnamon toast, slipping little notes into my lunch bag with lines from books she loved. She used to call me her second chance at kindness. And now these two had walked into my hospital room, uninvited, to carve her memory up like a pie. I looked straight at Dana. "I'm not incompetent," I said. "And I'm not signing anything." Her smile didn't flinch. "Of course not, sweetie. No one's suggesting that. We just wanted to make sure you understood the timeline." They left after 15 minutes. Dad never looked me in the eye. Later that night, the night nurse, Jamie, sat on the edge of my bed and asked if I was okay. I think I nodded. I don't really remember. I just remember her hand brushing mine and her saying, "You don't deserve that kind of cold." 2 days later, I got a call from the estate lawyer. "I've just been informed your father and stepmother are contesting the will," he said, "on the grounds that you are mentally unfit to manage the assets." I was still hooked up to fluids, still doing cognitive tests twice a day, still unable to walk on my own. "But," he added quietly, "they filed the motion before they even visited you." Time-stamped 2 days before that clinic visit. So yeah, they didn't come to check on me. They came to make sure I couldn't fight back. And the worst part? They almost got away with it. I wasn't even off oxygen when I found out what they were really after. Mika was the one who told me. She'd stepped out to take a call and came back into my hospital room looking off, like she didn't want to say something but knew she had to. "They went to Grandma June's attorney," she said quietly, "the one who manages her estate. They told him you were mentally unfit to handle any legal or financial matters." I laughed, just this raw, bitter sound I didn't recognize. "They said that while I was still in the ICU?" She nodded. 2 days before they even showed up here. 2 days before. They didn't just leave me to die. They planned for me to be gone. Not just physically, legally. The will had a clause. Apparently, Grandma was meticulous. If something happened to me and I wasn't able to claim my part of the estate within 60 days, the whole thing defaulted to the next of kin, which legally was my father. And because they'd never officially adopted any more kids, that meant Dana too. It was like a horror movie where you find out the monster's been in the house the whole time. And it's wearing your dad's face. I told the lawyer I wanted to speak to him myself. He agreed to come by the clinic later that week. But before that happened, before I could even stand for more than 10 minutes without passing out, Dana came back. This time, she came alone. She wore a pastel suit, pearls, carried a leather folder. Looked like she was headed to court or brunch. Or both. She didn't even ask if she could come in. just stepped inside like she owned the place. "I wanted to clarify a few things," she said, setting the folder down on the windowsill. "Your father and I are trying to handle this delicately." I stared at her. "Delicately? You mean like filing for control of my inheritance behind my back?" She didn't blink. "We weren't sure you'd recover. You didn't wait to find out." "Casey, please." She actually had the nerve to sound exasperated. "This whole thing is so dramatic. You have no job, no stable housing, no—" "I own a business." I cut her off. "I have a lease, I have employees, and you tried to make me legally disappear." She folded her arms. "You're being emotional." I nearly choked. Emotional? I almost died, alone, because my own family refused to sign the damn paperwork to save my life. Dana sighed, like I was a stubborn child. "Your father didn't want to have this fight with you. Neither do I. But if you contest the guardianship petition, we will have to disclose everything. The eating disorder, the hospitalization, the debt, the fact that you're unstable enough to collapse at work." My mouth went dry. "You're threatening me." "I'm protecting the family legacy." "No," I said, voice shaking. "You're protecting your access to someone else's money." She turned to leave. "You've always been trouble, Casey. Even your mother—" "Don't," I said. She stopped. "Don't you dare bring up my mom." She looked at me like I was a stranger. "You're right," she said finally. "You're not part of this family. You never really were." And then she left. But not before sliding a document onto my table, something typed and notarized and saying, "If you come to your senses, call Gerald. We'll have the papers ready." I waited till she was gone. Picked up the folder. My name was on the cover. Inside was a letter from their lawyer claiming I had no legal standing to manage the estate, that I had a long history of instability and dangerous behavior, that they had stepped in to safeguard what was rightfully theirs. I almost vomited right there in bed. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal, or the lies. It was the line that said, "Casey Doyle has no surviving maternal relatives and no siblings." They erased me, on paper, like I didn't even exist. And if Mika hadn't stepped in when she did, maybe I wouldn't have. If you've ever had someone try to rewrite your story while you were still alive to tell it, if you've ever been treated like an inconvenience in the very family you bled for, please know, I see you. You're not invisible, and you sure as hell aren't disposable. The thing they never tell you about survival is that it makes you angry. Not right away. At first, you're just grateful to be breathing, to be upright. But then, once your brain clears, the fury sets in. Quiet, controlled, and aimed like a blade. I didn't come out of that clinic a warrior. I came out hollow. But hollow leaves room. And I filled that room with one thing: intent. First step was simple: legal clarity. Mika connected me with a lawyer, Tamara, ex-military, soft-spoken, but lethal. She reviewed everything in under 48 hours. "Your adoption was legal. Full stop," she told me. "Your grandmother's will is airtight. What they're doing is banking on you being too weak to fight." She leaned forward. "You want to fight?" I didn't hesitate. "Number I want to finish." She smiled. We filed a response to their guardianship petition the next morning. Attached: medical clearance from my psych team, proof of income from my business, and a letter from the attending physician stating, verbatim, that Casey Doyle is of sound mind and has been since regaining consciousness. Tamara also requested security footage from the clinic, specifically the day Dana came to clarify things. I'd asked the nurse to leave my phone recording on the table, just in case. Turns out, just in case was exactly enough. Her voice clear as day. "You've always been trouble, Casey. You never really were part of this family." Followed by her sliding forged documents toward my bed. We sent it straight to the probate judge. But I wasn't done. Next, I made a list of everything in the house Grandma June had left me. Every item they'd tried to take. I cross-referenced it with photos from the day of the funeral, social media posts, even an old video Dana had smugly uploaded years ago showing off vintage heirlooms. Half of it had already been quietly removed, so I filed a theft report. Then I had the locks changed. Then I installed cameras. Then I wrote the letter. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't even cruel. It was clinical. I laid out everything. Their neglect, the clinic visit, the forged documents, the timeline showing they moved to seize the estate before even confirming I was alive. I included photos of the antiques they took and a legal demand for return. I attached copies of the notarized lies Dana tried to have me sign, and at the end I wrote, "You don't owe me love. You don't owe me care, but you don't get to erase me. Not after everything. Not anymore." I emailed it to their attorney, CC'd the judge, BCC'd Mika, and then I rested. For the first time in weeks, I actually slept. Until the phone rang. It was Tamara. "They filed a response," she said, "but there's a problem." I sat up. "What kind of problem?" "They added a sworn affidavit," she said carefully, "signed by your father." I waited. "He claims your mother, your biological mother, was never legally married to him, that you were placed in his care after her death out of obligation, not adoption, that you've been using the Doyle name under false pretense." My heart stopped. "What does that even mean?" "It means," Tamara said, "they're not just trying to take your inheritance now. They're trying to erase your legal identity. Erase me. Legally. Entirely." She continued, "If the judge takes this seriously, you could lose access to your business, your bank accounts, your name. Everything tied to the Doyle identity." I couldn't breathe. Not because I was scared, because I knew exactly what this was. This wasn't about money anymore. It was erasure. Deliberate. Surgical. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to make sure I lost everything. If anyone reading this has ever had their very existence challenged like this, if your pain was never enough proof, if your story had to be legit just to matter, please know, I hear you. And we don't go down quiet. Not anymore. They thought I'd vanish quietly. That's what it had always been about, right? Control the story, keep up appearances, make the black sheep disappear without a scene. But this time I had receipts, emails, affidavits, video footage, legal proof of adoption, financial records showing they tried to move Grandma June's assets before I was even declared medically stable. Tamara handed it all to the judge in one thick binder. They didn't expect that. They didn't expect I'd recover, or fight, or that I'd finally stop caring about protecting their reputation. The court hearing was quiet, sterile. Just a few rows of seats, a probate judge in glasses, and voices that echoed too loud in a room too big. They tried to spin it. Dana showed up in pearls again. My father looked old, smaller than I remembered. Their lawyer argued I'd fabricated mental clarity, that I'd emotionally manipulated the court, and that my unstable state made me unfit to manage complex assets. Tamara didn't flinch. She played the footage. Dana sliding forged documents across my hospital tray. My father silent behind her. Me asking if they were threatening me. Dana smiling. The judge stopped the video halfway through. His voice was calm. "Do the petitioners have any rebuttal to this footage?" Their lawyer looked at them. No one spoke. Then came the ruling. The guardianship petition? Denied with prejudice, their claim over Grandma's estate? Invalidated by fraudulent intent. All stolen items? To be returned under court supervision. All legal fees? Paid by them. And my identity? Legally affirmed. Permanently protected. Dana's face barely moved. My father didn't even look at me. I wish I could say I felt victorious, that I walked out of there with my head high and my heart light. But that's not how healing works. I cried in the bathroom stall for 20 minutes before I could breathe again. Tamara slid a tissue under the door and said, "It's done, Casey. You're free." Freedom's a weird thing. It doesn't arrive with trumpets. It comes in small silences, like sleeping through the night without dreaming of their voices. 3 weeks later, they moved out of state. Florida, I think. Sold their house quietly. Dana deactivated her Facebook. My father retired from his practice due to stress. And that's the thing. They didn't lose because I wanted revenge. They lost because they couldn't imagine a world where I'd stop needing them. But I did. Now I live in Grandma June's house. It's got creaky floors and chipped paint and the best front porch in the neighborhood. Mika visits every Friday. Emily comes by with her fiancé and bad movie nights. Allison, yeah, we're trying. We don't pretend it's perfect, but there's honesty now. And space to grow. One night, Allison brought over a dusty photo album. Inside was a picture I hadn't seen in years. Me, age 9, sitting on Grandma's porch, missing my 2 front teeth, cinnamon toast in hand. She wrote on the back, "For Casey, so you never forget who you are." I stared at it for a long time, because I hadn't forgotten. They tried to erase me, but I remembered. I rebuilt. And now I belong. To a life, to a home, to a family I chose. They tried to bury me in silence. I answered back with truth. The lesson I've learned? You don't need a last name to have worth. You just need a name you choose to keep. And the belief that you deserve more than survival. If you've ever been written out of your own story, I truly hope you'll share it in the comments. I'm reading, and if you're still searching for your voice, stay. We still have so much left to say.